So ketamine, guys. Ketamine was popularized back during the Vietnam War. It was used majority as an anesthetic for people that got shot, that were wounded in war. So they inject them with this drug, got them numb a little bit. Hopefully, got the care that they need afterwards. So ketamine is actually a NMDA receptor antagonist. So that's the reason behind why it's used as an anesthesia and analgesic as well. But now, as time moves on, we know psilocybin is getting used for depression. Now they're trying to do some experience with ketamine, and it's been showing some pretty good results. Some studies have been showing some positive results with depression, major depression, and also depression that's resistant to other drugs like SSRIs and tricyclic antidepressants.
It's crazy how California is making a revolution here, where when we were just in Oakland, they legalized what's called psilocybins, and now these trials are being tested out for this dissociative drug, which is in the same drug class as PCP, guys. Like, it causes hallucinations. And we in the hospital where I'm working at, they're already starting modules, and they're starting to use ketamine therapy. So not only is it for what is it called? The major depression, which we're going to talk about in the studies. It's also used as a sedative for surgery, and you could actually induce people while they're intubated with ketamine. I haven't seen it personally yet, but it's going to be pretty cool to see how it works better than opioids or like propofol.
Yeah, it's actually really cool to see, because I like this idea of drugs that we have been working with the past. Like psilocybin has been around for many years. So has marijuana, and they're legalizing those things because it is showing some kind of a benefit. Because we all know that these pharmaceutical drugs that we currently have, they do a decent job treating people, but there is a subgroup of people that are resistant to these drugs, or these drugs are just not doing enough. So, here comes in marijuana, psilocybin, and now ketamine for, PTSD, depressive disorders, and just like anybody with like any kind of psychiatric illness in the future. I know bipolar is also getting treated with these medications, and it's good to see because these meds have been around for a very long time. So I feel like we have a pretty good clinical grasp on them. It's more of like, how do we make these things safe I guess I would say, how do we make these things bioavailable and safe at the same time in our bodies? So we kind of got to experiment with the dosages, see what kind of works, because like ketamine in high doses, it's a sedative, it's an analgesic. It numbs you, and it can potentially, make you stop breathing. We use it to induce surgery and induce like intubations. So we obviously can't be giving this drug out just to anybody, because it's obviously going to have those effects like morphine. Morphine, what that turns to is a lot of people use morphine, then it turns to heroin as a street drug, and people die from, respiratory depression and eventually stop breathing. So it's good that we're doing this research, and I'm glad that it's actually happening, but we still got to find out a lot about the safe dosages. Is it something that we can only do in a clinical space, or something that we could now use, maybe go from IV to a PO version that's safe over the counter, not over the counter, but safe to take at home? Because right now ketamine is not used outside a clinical setting, correct?
Yeah, so the one medication that's being released by the FDA after drug trials, it's called S-ketamine, I guess. And guess who made that drug, man? Johnson & Johnson.
Of course, dude.
I know they always get their first little, I wonder who they bought out. But anyways, the way this drug works is it's used as an add-on to antidepressants. So the only way you could get this drug is if you're the 30% of the population that SSRIs or antidepressants hasn't worked. So what you do is you take this on top of your antidepressant SSRI. And what happens is they have been having great success rates. They're calling it one of the biggest breakthroughs in depression research. So I wonder if this could be used as a over-the-counter, because right now, you have to go to your doctor's office and take this dose, and he has to administer it, correct? You can't just take it home and be sedated, technically.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's, I'm not sure it was a physician or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but you do have to be with somebody else in like actual clinical setting. You got to go into the office and take it in the office and go through it in the office, because it's like I think it's like 45 minutes of an effect.
Something like that, and you have to kind of sign a waiver that you cannot drive yourself home. Someone has to pick you up.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a dissociative drug, so it does produce euphoria, can produce hallucinations. Obviously, we don't want you tripping balls when you give this medication, but that plays a role into your antidepressant maybe, and like unlocks different neural pathways in your brain. And a lot of times it's not just they give you the medication and they let you just, lay through it. It's they talk to you, they use like different kind of talking strategies, and they kind of work with you through your high, essentially.
That's what I'm thinking too. And they have actually tested this on like a 16-year-old boy. It was like a 2017 Yale study. And this kid basically tried to kill himself at least 3 times. And after taking this ketamine infusion, his symptoms literally reduced and he had no longer suicide ideations. This is just, of course, clinical trials. It's not like being given for suicide, but hopefully in the future, this could be prevention of, right? Not prevention of, but just like a bad way, a last ditch effort to help somebody with suicide.
Yeah. I mean, of course, if it works, why not give it to them, especially if it's like this last ditch effort. I'm not saying ketamine is going to be a last ditch effort for everybody. It might be, first line, but this is how these medications start. So you got to first do research on the subgroup that doesn't respond to our current standards of care. And that's kind of where we should move forward, because you can't just test it like the public with it. You got to start small and then move on. There's one study that I read. I didn't fully read it because you got to pay to basically buy this article, but it was through Harvard University. And they actually experimented with ketamine with individuals, and it showed a 60% response rate within like 4.5 hours. And I think the week-long response rate was like 30%, which is actually, it was like, I believe it was 40% or a response rate for a week. So these people, one dose of ketamine kind of helped them through a week's worth of depression. And like I said, this depression was either major depressive disorder or it was a depression that was resistant to other kind of medications. And they did, it was conjugate with current recommended medication like SSRIs and tricyclic antidepressants.
It's interesting how we're moving because, during the 1900s, I'm not sure the exact dates, right? It went from trying like LSD and all that research, and they completely halted any kind of research. And it wasn't until like the 2000s now that we're starting to see the re-emerging of all these drugs. And for like the longest time, alcohol was the answer, which was, given to us and all the shelves, all the gas stations. And we're starting to realize that it's freaking bad poison, man. So I wonder if the next few generations, we're going to have a society that's going to be totally different on what it's consuming and stuff like that. Because look at like cigarettes, right? Like, dude, now nobody smokes cigarettes, man. It's hard to see. Everybody vapes or doesn't anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Like, look at the medication your parents had. If you could, it's kind of hard to recall because we're younger, but back then, like, think of antibiotics. They were used religiously. Like, everyone got an antibiotic. You see a doctor, they give you an antibiotic. Then they found out that is making a huge difference on these like antibiotic resistant, bacteria or cells, and it wasn't doing any benefit to viruses. So now they're cutting back antibiotics. So antibiotics are still fairly new. So as long as we give this medication to society, we keep doing these trials, it's so many times only going to tell. I mean, later on, we never know. We could find out that ketamine is completely pointless or completely doesn't work. Maybe it's just like a metabolite of ketamine that's actually producing an effect, and not just actually not ketamine as a whole. And we could just target that and give that to people. You never know what's really going to happen. But it's crazy to think about that ketamine is on the World Health Organization's. They have a list of like most important medication like in the world, and ketamine is on it. Oxygen is also on the list. Morphine's also on the list. Versat's on the list. Ketamine is on the World Health Organization list of most important medications, clearly for its analgesic effects, but maybe it could be on there for its antidepressant effects. I know there's 2 different derivatives of ketamine. There's like an S type and a K type. And the one that you mentioned, the nasal spray, it's actually the type of ketamine that doesn't work as well as the S type. So like I said, you got to try these things out. And then this is how it works. You try out these medications, and then you kind of learn what part of the medication actually does these certain things, and you isolate it. And then that's what you kind of give out to the public. And that's how you target different diseases and different infections, things like that. But just process, it's a whole long process. And I'm sure if it shows some benefit, even if it helps only like 5% of the population or even 3%, why not? Why not to give it to them?
And I think that's definitely going to be a push that we're going to see in the next few years, because look how psilocybins are progressing.